work for MLB, so I need to
Oh,
no
stop
comment.
it. No, if you want my opinions on that, that's very simple. Growing up a National League enthusiast with being a Met fan, I love the idea of handling the bat, but these kids today don't do that anymore. They're not able to handle the bat. So the universal DH was going to be the best thing for them.
Absolutely.
Oh, look.
You're a pixel on a screen. Animating principle is nowhere to be seen. Why am I lost in a loveless fantasy when somebody real is waiting out there for?
Are we frozen?
No, I was listening. I was about ready to fall asleep listening to
I know
this.
we go like this.
I had my early bird special. I wanted, after I talked to them a little bit, I'm going to eat my banana pudding and my peach cobbler back home in Georgia. And that's going to be great for me.
I know. What an intro. What an intro. We got Curtis Sliwa and Nelson Figueroa. We got Brooklyn boys in the house. One from Canarsie, one from Coney Island, right, Figgy?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
How are you guys? Welcome.
Good.
I'm miserable. My city's hard, right? Can't go to a Major League Baseball game. Watching these guys get paid incredible amounts of ducats, and all they do is they have slack problems. I'm wondering, the slack, my
Well, no. You'll be able to go to a game 10%. Aren't they allowing 10% of fans starting? So you'll get there.
No, he's coming with me. He's coming with me. He is my guest. Him and his family's my guest. He's coming to Yankee Stadium. I was his, he was my hero starting in 77. I was on the DL. I was down in at my house in Riverdale, and I'm listening to the game, the series, and he became a star. And I've watched him. I watched him become very, very successful, and he was my hero. And Nelson, I watched him for a couple of years, and he had some pretty good years. And, people don't realize how tough it is for a D3 player to get noticed and also to get a chance to be up in the big leagues.
Well, yeah.
And I don't know how many people really have done that before. It's not too many out of Brandeis too. I mean, I don't even know. I know that. I lived in New York for almost 11 years of my life, and Brandeis is, where is that? That's in Brooklyn?
No, Brandeis is actually in Waltham, Massachusetts. There's Brandeis High School, which is over here in New York. And it's funny because that was my same reaction when they started to recruit me. It was like, where exactly are you guys? I played in a baseball tournament up in Waltham, Massachusetts, and the pitching coach was watching us literally pitch in his backyard at one of the fields, and was with Youth Service at the time, Youth Service League. And he came over, talked to me for a little bit, told me a little bit about the school, and asked if what my plans were. I thought I was going to try and go somewhere in the Big East, but it was going to be very difficult at my size to be able to pitch right away in the Big East. They kept saying, oh, when you bulk up a little bit, when you throw a little harder, probably your junior year, you can join the rotation. I didn't want to sit around and wait for 2 years. So I went with the best opportunity for me. And at the time, a small Division III school like that, I was going to be able to pitch and play right away. And the head coach was a gentleman by the name of Pete Varney, who had been a major league catcher for several years. And
sure,
so
with the White Sox, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
So I felt like I could go somewhere and it's almost like being tutored one-on-one in that kind of environment where I would be the big fish in a little pond. And that would be my way of standing out. So I tried to soak up as much knowledge, learn as much as I could from Pete Varney. And by my sophomore year, I went over and played in the Cape Cod League, which was, again, the most prized prospects in all the country.
Yeah.
And I was able to get in there because the pitching coach for the Wareham Gatemen was a Division III coach in the area. And so he saw me. I pitched against this team on two different occasions and did really well. And he said, yeah, I know the kid can pitch. He goes, let me see what I can do. I'll bring him in. he'll hang out for a few days. And if for some reason, what happened was 2 kids got drafted and signed right away. They had room then, and I was able to jump in that rotation. And I did very well, made the all-star team. We won a championship. We threw back-to-back-to-back shutouts in the finals that had never been done before. And all of a sudden, my name was on the map. And that led me to bigger and better things, even though I still only got drafted in the 30th round and still had that mountain to climb. But it gave me an opportunity at least to get my foot in the door professionally.
I mean, come on now. There's 19,902 MLB players, and you made it. So give yourself some credit. Come on, Nelson.
No, and it's amazing because I was just
round.
I just did a clinic for youth service kids in Queens this weekend, and when I talked to them, I said, "Listen, I want you all to have major league success and have wonderful careers, but it's not that easy." And let me explain to you how difficult it actually is. And one of the things is that even if you get drafted, only 5% of those that get drafted make it to the major leagues. And like you just said, that number right there, less than 20,000 people have actually played in one major league game.
And there's 750 players vying for a spot on a team each season. So yeah, it's to even get drafted, it's huge.
You got these kids nowadays, they spend thousands of dollars to get in lessons. And their parents will always tell you, well, my son hit just 15 home runs in 4 games. And my son just struck out 30 guys in 11 innings. And he's the best of the best. This guy, my son, has the best arm. They don't understand. And you came up through the hard way through the minor leagues, and you saw probably so many great athletes and so many guys. You said, gosh, am I here with these guys? And but to make an athlete, and Curtis would tell you this, would take a person to go in your organization. You got to have heart. If you don't have heart, that's 75% of the battle of heart. 25%, of course, is ability. But I look at that 75%, somebody that really wants to really work. Guys that get drafted number 1 or 2, number 1, they make tons of money now. So they know they're going to get an opportunity to reach the big leagues. But if you get drafted in the 30th round, it's just like football. You get on the practice squad, you get beat up every single day. And they don't understand that practice squad. If you look at the rotation, the practice squad, these guys on different teams like almost every week.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's not easy. And,
It's not easy.
when we played, we made no money. Nelson Lease, he came up at a time when, they made a little bit of dollars. We made no money. In 73, I hit 329. Now, they gave me a $500 raise. And the next year I hit 311. They took my $500 back. And then next year I hit 301. They didn't even talk about a raise to me. And, I look at these guys now, they hitting 215, 217, and they getting 40 at bat, and they give them $1.5 million raises. And I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, look what free agency did. But you know what? Hey, I don't feel bad because we had the greatest time in the whole world.
Exactly.
When you put that Yankee uniform on, and Nelson would tell you, when you play in front of the New York fans, if the Met fans or Yankee fans, they're the greatest fans in the whole wide world. And they know everything what you do. If you don't do well, they're going to follow you home.
And
Absolutely.
And one other thing before, you're like playing in New York with the fans and everything, you're from Brooklyn, you get drafted by the Mets. What was that like? How was that phone call?
Well, that phone call was fantastic because I had
No
spoken
offense to you, because when you were drafted, the cameras weren't there.
Right.
As they are now.
Oh no. Plus you had to, actually dial the phone, and maybe you still had rotary. They're still rotary, so you had to take your time getting the numbers. So when I first got drafted, remember the first rounds went by. I had gotten a phone call from the Mets, and they had said, we're very interested in you. What would it take to sign you? And I kept saying the same thing. Look, I'm not greedy. I'll take the average of whatever the round gets. The sooner, the better. And, I really wanted to start my professional career. First day goes by. They call me back late at night and said, hey, we went through the first 13 rounds. Looks like we're going to try and take you early tomorrow. That next day, I was waiting with bated breath, checking the phone, making sure the line was clear, and nothing happened. the third day came, and then when the third day came and went, and I got no phone call, no nothing, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going back to school. Let me just focus on doing the best I can, try and break some of the school records. And after that junior year, I realized that when I got the phone call finally, and this is how amazing the technology has changed things. I get the phone call finally. The gentleman's name was Paul Beretta. He was the scout. He actually got lost on the way to looking at another kid and stopped at my game looking around for a different field. While he saw me throwing, it was the 11th inning. I had struck out the side, and he comes over and he asked the guy, well, how hard's that kid throwing? He's like, 88, 89. He's like, oh, pretty good arm. He's like, yeah. He goes, just struck out the side. And the kid says, yeah. He goes, what inning is this? He goes, the 11th. He goes, is that your closer? He goes, no, actually, that's still the starter. And his mouth dropped, and he saw this kid who was 130 pounds, still throwing 88, 89 in the 11th inning. I was probably up to like 130, 140 pitches, but that's how I was raised. I wanted to go as deep in the game as long as I could. And he took note of us. We won that game, gave me a scout card afterwards to fill out everything. Next thing I know, I'm a 30th round draft pick with the New York Mets. And it was very surreal because that's exactly what I wanted to do my whole life. I envisioned myself as a New York Met. I grew up in Brooklyn playing against all my Yankee friends, and I had to do the batting stances and try and, emulate these guys. And that's how I learned how to switch hit, because I had to bat like Mookie and Mookie, Darryl, Keith Hernandez, and I wasn't a lefty, so I had to learn how to hit lefty. And here I was. I finally get a chance to sign. I signed. I signed at Shea Stadium, right on the GM's desk. Jerry Honeysucker was at the desk at the time. I signed my contract. I sit down, watch the game. They put an announcement on the Jumbotron that Nelson Figueroa from Abraham Lincoln High School has signed and is now a Met. And I get a standing ovation. I go down to Florida the next day, and when I go in my locker and I go to put on my uniform, they have the names still etched inside the collars. And I put on Howard Johnson's jersey and Dwight Gooden's pants.
Nice.
I could have died right there. And I would have been just fine and happy. So to be drafted by a team that you always loved and idolized. I had a kid today. I was doing a clinic in Queens again. And he was asking me about, so you played in the major leagues? I'm like, yes. He goes, so why'd you pick the Mets to play in the major leagues with? And I go, no, that's not how it works, kid. You don't get to just pick who you want to play in the major leagues with. I said, there's a draft. And if you're good enough, you get signed. And then if you become a free agent, then you can select what team you sign with. But at the major league level, you're going to put on any uniform you can if they're going to pay you to pitch for their team. So I had to let them get a little dose of reality in that one, that you'll just get to pick your team that you sign with.
Right, exactly. And then you went to the Diamondbacks and you had a couple of detours and returned back to the Mets in 2008.
Yeah, that was, again, 13 years in the making, to be able to not only have my first taste of the big leagues, pitching against the Mets when I was with the Philadelphia Phillies in 2001. So my first taste of Shea Stadium was in a visiting team uniform. And I was greeted with warmth still, and I had 130 people there in the stands to watch me. So that helped. But then to actually get an opportunity to get back on track in my career. I had missed 4 years with a shoulder injury. Rehabbed my shoulder, pitched all over the world. The year before I get signed back with the Mets, I pitched 280 innings all over the world, including Mexico and Taiwan, just to continue to hone my craft and show that I could still get hitters out all over the world, and baseball is still baseball. Finally, I get seen in the Dominican Republic in winter ball, and I was able to get a contract and invite to spring training. And here I am putting on the Met uniform in a big league clubhouse, and I'm sitting next to Santana and sitting next to Pedro and sitting next to all these guys that I grew up idolizing. And it's like surreal, but here I was already a veteran. I was already moving on in my career. I was already almost 30 years old when that happens. And it was like, okay, now this is my time to shine. I'm back with the Mets for a reason. And I'll never forget that first game, pitching in front of the home crowd at Shea Stadium when I took over for Pedro when he got hurt in 2008. It was like a movie. It was a foggy night against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brooklyn kid is stepping out on the mound. And I remember warming up and just taking it all in. Like, just my body was going through the motions of the warm-up, but my head was looking all over the stadium and just taking in every face and the roar of the crowd and feeling that energy. And I'll never forget that when I said, I said to myself, like, I'm on the field looking out now rather than on the outside looking in. Like, this is actually happening. And I got 2 strikes on one of my first hitters, and the crowd started doing the slow clap. And I was like, oh my God, this is everything I used to watch Doc Gooden and Sid Fernandez and Darling. And I got to give him a strikeout. I got to give him a strikeout. And I didn't strike out the first guy. I got on 2 strikes. I got him the ground out. And then the next guy struck out, and the roar of the crowd for just 1 second, I got to know what it was like to be like Doc Gooden on that Shea Stadium mound and get that applause and that feel that adulation and the energy you get from the roar of the crowd. And it was something that I'll not only never forget. I don't think I ever felt anything like that in my life. It's got to be what drugs are like, because that high of that enthusiasm, and to feel like I really accomplished it, even though I had already been in the big leagues. It didn't feel like it really hit me until I was in a Met uniform doing it at Shea Stadium now.
Well, it's like it came full circle for you. I mean,
Absolutely.
Several different teams. You were in Taiwan. You were the series MVP in their championship. I mean, you did really well internationally. So for you to come home, I mean, come on now. Probably still gives you chills talking about it, thinking about it.
Oh God, yes. It's talking about how not easy it was. Again, a cup of coffee would have been great. A cup just to get a chance to be in the big leagues would have been awesome to say, yeah, I made it to the big leagues. But to go up 11 different times, that to me showed perseverance. And, we're going to be talking with Curtis later on. I know for myself, perseverance is what New York is all about. I had that edge. I had that little chip on my shoulder. I was a New Yorker, and I used to always walk around with that. Some people say it was cockiness, or, I called it confidence, and it became swagger, what they called it later. It was just confidence. It was, you're not going to overwhelm me with anything. I'm from New York. I'm as tough as they come, and you can knock me down, but I'm going to get back up, because that's what I was born and raised that way. So between the dedication and the hard work instilled from my father and my mother, to the way I was raised with Youth Service League with Mel Zitter, who was one of the toughest coaches in all of New York. And then I go over to, Brandeis University and took the D3 route, which doesn't happen every day. Normally you go D3, it's a write-off. This guy's not going to be able to do it. But I was very fortunate to get opportunities and to make the most of them.
Right. When you made your debut in 2000, you're the first Brandeis alum to make it to the major league level. So.
Yeah, and the only still, which I hope there was a lot more of us, because I hope that me just being at Brandeis, it also helped with recruiting, because people saw that dream was possible. You didn't have to go the D1 route. We played very competitive baseball in our neck of the woods up there in Massachusetts. We used to play against BC, BU. If we played them in the fall, we would beat them, but they wouldn't put us on the schedule in the spring. No chance, because they were Division I. They didn't want to get beat by Division III school. Carlos Pena over at Northeastern, he was, and Mike Glavin, Tom Glavin's brother, with a dynamic duo over there. Left-handed hitters who used to crush balls. We used to play against them in the gym with tiny, all set up with an indoor mound, and we had nets to protect the windows because they were hitting the ball so dang hard. But that's that was my upbringing, playing in the parade grounds. So I look at these kids now, and I get a kid who's on a turf field complaining about, oh, I got a bad bounce. And I'm like, you have no idea what a bad bounce is until it hits either a hypodermic needle or half a bottle as it's rolling towards you in the parade grounds.
In regards, kind of around that, speaking of the upbringing, being from New York, it's not easy. Let's bring in Curtis and say it was not easy. Curtis Sliwa, everyone, an activist, founder and CEO of the Guardian Angels. Welcome. Hello.
Oh, my pleasure to be joining all of you. Obviously, I'm enjoying the memory machine that you've taken us on in terms of a Brandeis University. I would have said, this guy's a brainiac. He's like,
you got a scholarship to Brown University, my friend.
Yeah, but I got thrown out of high school.
Look what you're doing now. Doesn't matter.
Tying their boots on my backside. And by the way, when I pitched, the only time my father ever saw me pitch, because he was a merchant seaman, we were playing against Lockland High School in Brooklyn Prep Field. You talk about hypodermic needles, rocks, busted bottles. 5 straight pitches, I was insisting that they couldn't hit my curveball. 5 times I looked over my shoulder, went over the fence in President Street, broke a window in one of the brownstones. The coach took me out. He said, I didn't want to have to do this, kid. Your dad is there, but come on. And it's like we're already like 22-4. This is embarrassing. So I knew right then that was it for me. I was the captain of the team, but I was not ready for prime time. I knew it then.
That's all right. That's all right. But you still brought stickball to Cuba back in 2004, so you still kept up.
One of my proudest accomplishments was playing stickball. I was a very good stickball player, commissioner of stickball in the city of New York, anointed by Rudy Giuliani when he was in Cucamonga. Back from the brink. And yes, I was the first to bring stickball to Cuba. I was out in the Palace of the Revolution, which is right near the ocean. And all I did was I had some Spaldings and some Daily News stickball bats, and they just started to bounce the ball. And the kids started running in from everywhere. Took them about a half hour because their hand-eye coordination was good. I was putting spin on the ball. I was loading it up with a little spit. Within they were hitting everything I was throwing up there. To this day, there's probably some Cubanos who have swum 90 miles through shark-infested waters with a Spalding probably in their backpack.
Oh, they found them in the water as they were getting over.
Exactly. It helped them float in the Atlantic Ocean. They love stickball, baseball. They would hit rocks. They would hit cans. They would hit socks. It was incredible to see all of those young people there who were just in love of this game that we were all raised on.
Oh, that's incredible. I love it. Incredible. So let's talk about the Guardian Angels. Okay, you're a nighttime manager of McDonald's in the Bronx. You're doing your commute on the 4 train, Muggler's Express, I believe is what it was nicknamed. And you're just so distraught and just so sick and tired of the crimes that plagued all your writers. So you came up with, I think it started off as Magnificent 13. How did it evolve to what Guardian Angels is?
Well, I saw my future in the New York Daily News, in the Sunday paper. They said, come on up to the Bronx. We need managers for Mickey D's. And I said, well, hey, Ray Kroc, Mickey D's, Max Fry's Strawberry Shakes. I can do that. I was living in Brownsville, never ran, never will at that time. Not too many white boys living in Brownsville, right? Talking 1976, 77, feet don't fail me now. So I two-train the Beast from Rockaway Avenue, switch over to the 4 train, the Muggers Express, go up to Fordham and Webster Avenue. And the reason that I got hired, the guy said, look, I couldn't care if you were burning quarter pounders on the grill. We just had a manager shot and killed in a guard in an armed robbery. So you seem like you got some couillon, some onions here. So basically, all you are is the watchman here at Mickey D's. Make sure they don't take the money out each night. And that's how I got my start in Mickey D's. And from there, I said, once we close at night, I have to schlep back to Brooklyn. All of a sudden, you got homeboys, at that time, they had the Kangos, they had the reverse sheepskin coats. They're coming through the train singing Manhattan Makes It, and then they'd be looking at me with my Mickey D's jacket on, and Brooklyn Takes It. And then all start giving me a beat down like you wouldn't believe. So I'd have to be fighting. And I said, this is crazy. So I brainwashed my closing crew, most of who lived in the Bronx. And I said, guess what? Ray Kroc is going to pay for you to come patrol with me on the number 4 train, the Muggers Express, because I'm giving you extra time on the time clock. And that's how it began. And it started at the same time that the Warriors, remember, the Warriors come out. That movie came out. It was a cult classic. But everybody thought that we were a gang because they said, oh, it's like the Warriors. So now they were after us, and they were everywhere. I mean, there was gang turf everywhere in the Bronx. Savage Skulls, Savage Nomads, Black Spades. I can go on forever. The cops were locking us up because they thought we were vigilantes and Hell's Angels. So I'm getting wooden shampoos and concrete facials on my way to Central Brooklyn. Bronx House, Brooklyn House of Detention, the Tombs, Rikers Island. And here it is. I'm just trying to protect people. And all of a sudden, the CEO, would say, hey, look at who we have here today, Mr. Crime Fighter. You guys want him in your cell. Ha! So you can imagine that was a baptism in fire. So for 13 years, we had no support. The police were against us. Ed Koch, the mayor at that time, was opposed to us.
Right.
It wasn't until Rudy Giuliani got elected mayor that he said, stop, Abbas, no more. Leave the Guardian Angels alone. This is a good thing for the city. They're volunteers. They're unarmed. They put their lives at stake. 6 had been shot and killed in the line of duty. 3 dozen seriously injured. I got air raided with 5 hollow point bullets on the orders of John Gotti Sr., the Junior to the Gambinos. So I think took us 13 years in that baptism of fire, but we earned our credibility, and we've been able to become a global organization.
Oh, absolutely. 130 cities, 13 countries. I mean, recognized multiple times, and people just feel so safe when they see you. You see the red berets and your satin red jackets. I mean, it's incredible what you've done. And like you said, unarmed. 6 of you travel, right? It's always minimum 6, and you train them.
Minimum of 4.
Minimum of 4 now. Okay.
And I will tell you, in the initial stages, you know, dealing with black gangs, Hispanic gangs, Italian gangs, occasionally Asian gangs. The ones I had to watch out for were the Supreme Cuisines because, you know, they used bats, but you could tell they never played hardball. Recap you. I got hit so hard one time, my mother felt the vibrations. I read the Joe DiMaggio autograph on the Louisville Slugger before it got me right in the forehead. That's how they translated baseball. Street thuggery. You know, Italians are always known to have baseball bats in the back of the trunk of their car. And at a moment's notice, the Supreme Cuisines would be pulling them out and going to war against us, the guardian angels. So it didn't matter what neighborhood we were in, wherever we were, the ethnic or the racial background. We were multiracial. We were out there trying to protect people. Everyone initially misunderstood what our motivations were. You know, they always thought the worst. And over time, we were able to prove that we were just trying to do what was best for everybody.
Well, protect the communities and people. And then you train them on martial arts because, like you said, they're unarmed. You guys get patted down that there's no weapons on you guys, no drugs, and you train them in martial arts. And there's like different.
This isn't see something, say something.
Got it.
You got to call 911. You be waiting to Sundays for the cops to get there. So if we see somebody brutalizing somebody else, got to be a little pain compliance there. What do you think you think that guy just stands there, you know, all of a sudden he's just knocked you upside your head, tried to rob you. We're physically holding him until the police arrive, which again, could take a month of Sundays. And so you got to use a little pain compliance so that the guy understands, stop resisting, pal. We're giving you a chiropractic adjustment that normally you might have to so appreciate how we rearrange all of the vertebrae in your backside while you're waiting for the wagon to come pick you up.
You're doing a service. It's a full service.
It is a full service.
Yeah, it's what we call an attitudinal readjustment.
There you go.
Your attitude readjusted, because unfortunately, when you run the streets like I've run the streets, the only language that some of the young men understand is pain compliance. That's because they weren't brought up the right way. They have no role models. You know, daddy's not around. And if there are any male role models, they're the worst possible male role models. So they grow up thinking that being a thug is the way to get attention and recognition. They look forward to going to jail as if it's a badge of courage. And unfortunately for a lot of them, you know, I pass through neighborhoods now and all the hardball fields that we used to try to find on a Sunday. Remember, we used to have to go way in the back. You talk about the parade grounds. Remember, they had the new parade grounds and then they had the old cow pastures in the back. There was no dirt. There was like hills.
The weeds.
Right. And then when you would try to dig in at home plate, like you would be up to your knee in one section and up to your ankle in the next. And yet, if you found one field, you say, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah, there's nobody around. Now, to find somebody playing hardboard other than, let's say, a Dominican neighborhood, it's only, you almost never see that any longer. All they play is kickball, soccer, you know, football with a U, that fake phony Fugazi soccer that they most Americans into playing instead of good old-fashioned smash-mouth American football. Right? When's the last time you saw a bunch of young people just get together and hit some fungos? You know, just go out there, shag some flies. I remember Frank Crissetti. He would have the fungo bat at Yankee Stadium. He'd be hitting the high flies to Mickey, Tommy Trash, Roger Maris. You'd say, and then they play Pepper on the sideline. Now they have big signs.
Yeah.
No Pepper.
No Pepper.
What the hell is that? The Pepper. all kinds of tricks, chicanery. Yeah, you know, it's like, it was so good to see. And then they eliminated all of that. Which was, and then a doubleheader. As a kid, you go early in the morning. First, you'd have to naturally go and tell your mother, yeah, I had my Holy Communion. Confession, right? You'd go on the train, $1.50 student government organization card. You'd see batting practice, all the scrubs before game one. And then sometimes it'd be extra innings, and then more batting practice before game two. And you wouldn't get home sometimes till 10, 11 o'clock at night. No cell phones. They had no idea where you are. You could bring a brown bag lunch, a Velveeta cheese sandwich, right, which was worse. Drink water from a fountain to save what little money you had. And you had the best time in the world. Now you have to make a reverse mortgage to get a dirty water hot dog. Right? It's crazy.
It's so true. You don't see any of this anymore.
You don't see kids
It's
going to
sad.
the stadium on their own.
Man.
We used to go as a posse of 5, 6, 7 kids.
Right.
And it was great. It was absolutely doubleheaders, twinighters. Oh, it
Those
couldn't.
were the days. Those were the days. Oh man, I can hear. Tell us more stories.
Oh, more so. Okay. Howard broke my heart. My hero was Mickey Mantle, number 7. My father, Merchant Seaman, was a Chicago White Sox fan because he came from Chi-Town. So he goes, kid, we're going to go to Yankee Stadium. So naturally, we're up in the right field stands, the nosebleed section. And my father didn't drink because my grandfather was a lush, but he's screaming invectives from the right field foul pole and Mickey Mantle in center. Roger Maris is below. Roger Maris is looking up, number 9, and feeling sorry for me. He's going, you're a degenerate, Mickey Mantle. You're a lush. You drink all the time. Look at you. You had the knee operation. You got the ace bandage showing. And all the Yankee fans looked at me, kid, I feel so sorry for you. Maybe we can adopt you. This crazy guy here in the real Yankee Stadium, you know, the land of Babe Ruth, not the mall that was built with Jeter and Aroyd, you know, and all the rest of them. The House of Ruth. It was so great to be there. And my father, he destroyed my experience in Yankee Stadium. I was crushed. Everybody was looking at me like, oh, man, this guy he's got all the furniture upstairs and rearranged in the wrong rooms. And my father walking around, Chicago White Sox back then, Cuban manager, trying to remember his name.
Louis Aparicio? No.
That shortstop from Venezuela.
Yeah.
Floyd Robinson in right field, I remember. Trying to remember, they had Minnie Minoso was like in the final stages of his life. Power hitter. And the Chicago White Sox had great pitching. So they would keep the Yankees down to like 2-1, 3-2 games. And I mean, we're talking 9 innings, 10 innings. And then watching Tommy Agee as the Chicago White Sox basket catch. Remember basket catch. Willie Mays basket catch. Joe Pepitone in center field basket catch. When do you ever see anybody do a basket catch nowadays?
No,
It's never.
not even close.
No, they catch the fly ball and they throw it to center field or right field and they run in. When we played, we couldn't do that because if we would have done that, they would have sent us down to the minor leagues. We didn't have enough baseballs. We couldn't finish the games.
And then to watch Mickey Mantle drag bunt. Mickey Mantle, who could hit him like 600 feet on a flyer, which you'd be waiting like you could run around, you know, Yankee Stadium 4 times. The ball was still in the air by the time he came down. He would drag bunt since he was a switch hitter, and he would beat it out to first base. And the best games were against the Detroit Tigers. You had Norm Cash at first base. Oh, it was amazing. Al Kaline, who had a rocket bomb in right field. They had Frank Gehry, I think he was. He was the Yankee killer, left-hander. Yankees
Frank Larry, freehand.
That's right, catcher. And you went there for $1.50.
Yeah.
$1.50. Unbelievable.
I know how times have changed. It's
Gosh. I mean,
You can go for $1.50 now. It's just 150.
Yeah, exactly. Minimum.
Yankee Stadium,
Minimum.
150.
And
Yankee
they signed.
Stadium would cost you $300 for one person get out of there.
Right, but after the game, they would sign. So you're a kid, right? Whatever you had, you know, your dirty underwear, they'd sign that.
Not anymore.
The only one who wouldn't sign, Mickey Mantle. Oh,
No.
broke my heart. Willie Mays wouldn't sign. Joe DiMaggio wouldn't sign. These guys were the three best of all time, right? I don't know. They walked around with a cloud over their head. It's like they were gods. There was idolatry. We saw Mickey Mantle, Willie Mays. Hey, Bloomberg, I wouldn't have come to visit you. I'd have come to visit Willie Mays, who lived up
I
in
know that.
Joe DiMaggio, Mr. Coffee, right? Remember Mr. Coffee, Joe DiMaggio? And they always walk around like they had dog faces and doom and gloom. And I'm saying, God, these are the greatest baseball players of all time. Why do they always have this attitude like the world owed them? They were gods. I don't think people realized at that time. They walked and people would say, oh my God, it's Mickey Mantle. It's Willie Mays. It's Joe DiMaggio. I never could quite understand that. And they would never sign. They would never sign. Hey, get out of here, kid. Hey, you're a person of no consequence. Out of my way. Oh, hey, Mickey, you're God. Yeah, get out. We're throwing you out of heaven. You're going straight to hell.
So it's funny that you say that, because one of my biggest goals when I was in the big league, especially in New York, was I would go out for an hour before the game and I would sign autographs for anyone and everyone. And I would usually get, can you take this to David Wright? Can you take this to Jose Reyes?
Yeah, they
Can you
always
get, yeah, can you get Beltran to come over here? And here I am signing the autograph. And because I remember being that kid, I remember just wanting an autograph. And if that player signed for me, he became my favorite player. You know, I'd follow that guy's career for the rest of my life, you know? So that to me was something that I always remembered that I wanted to make that day. Because if it was the only game that kid went to, I wanted to say he had a fantastic time. He got an autograph ball, he got an autograph, he got a picture, whatever it was. And I took an hour out of my day, always before the games. Afterwards, it's a little tough because guys like Mickey Mantle wanted to get going on the rest of the night, if you know what I mean. So for me, it was to take that moment to give back. I don't make a lot of money. It wasn't about how much money I was making at the time, because I used to get that question all the time, you know, when I talk to kids. You know, how much money do you make? What kind of car you drive? You know, how big's your house, kind of thing. And to me, I got to put professional baseball player anytime I had to list my occupation. And you talk about that frowny face. I never had that, because every day I was in the big leagues was a blessing for me. And I always wanted to make sure that I gave the fans, even if I was on the road and I got a chance to autograph. I used to get letters all the time from fans on the road who were like, you know, I'm a diehard Pittsburgh Pirate fan, but I will be rooting for you every time you play because you took the time out for my son. And that to me is the big difference in how, if I was commissioner for a day, those are some of the things that I would try and make sure that those better fan relations, because for the price that you're paying and for the amount of money that you're making, just that half hour, have a half hour that you can give back and be able to make the fans happy. After the game, guys are tough now, especially with social media, and you got cameras following you everywhere. They want to be out of the limelight once those lights go off at the stadium. You know, the further you can be from the back pages, the better when it comes to that stuff. So I think now, if I was commissioner for a day, I would definitely try and get these guys a little bit more motivated to do some better PR for the teams and for the game of baseball.
And I'm so glad you said that, just because you giving back and taking time to make these kids smile with autographs, pictures, and whatnot. I know you had met a young girl by the name of Perry in 2009. And John, you are not a runner, my friend. You have a brand new hip. I know that. And because of Perry, a young girl who was battling an illness, you did work with High Lifetime, right? No, High Lifeline.
Yeah. Yes.
And you walked a half marathon for her in Miami. So tell us when you met her and how did that marathon transpire 7 years later or years later?
Yeah, we're still doing it. With COVID last year, we weren't able to do it, and I've been recruiting other people to come run with me. So Perry Finkelstein and the Finkelsteins are a fantastic family, huge Mets fans. I met them in 2009. They were sitting down, and Perry Finkelstein was born with cerebral palsy, and she's amazing. That all she does is try and give back. All she does is try and raise money for other kids. High Lifeline is an organization that raises money for a large group of kids who are under basically 24-hour, 365 medical care and need, you know, it's a whole family that has to really help these kids thrive and not just survive. So what High Lifeline does is they send these kids to a place called Camp Simcha up in New York, and they go for a week. And basically, the kid is given an experience of a lifetime. It's like they bring Disney World to them, rather than them having to go down there, because most families can't afford it with all the medical bills that they have. And they are taking care of all their expenses. All the care is being given by a medical staff and team, so that the families can also get a little break there and enjoy the time with them, where it's not in a, like what do we have to do to get them through the next few hours. So they have helicopter rides where it's modified and the wheelchairs can go in, jet skis that are modified. There's a zip line that goes for like 2 miles all around the complex, where you have literally kids in wheelchairs zip lining through the forest in upstate New York. They play all kinds of games, huge soccer fields. There's a indoor basketball court that it's made to look like an arena where, you have that, they're all watching each other play. And so I love to interact with them and help them to raise money. It's just been such a fun cause, and going down to Miami and run the marathon and walk the marathon. I had a hip replacement, and I remember telling my surgeon, can I run a half marathon? And he goes, are you getting paid to do it? And I go, no, I'm not getting paid to do it, but I'm trying to raise some money. He goes, do you care about your time? I said, no. He goes, then walk it. I said, well, I will. So it was more rewarding for me to be able to walk it and kind of enjoy the walk. I did it with a couple of the slower runners, talking the whole time. And once we got through the finish line, we were training to complete, not to compete. So we got through the finish line, and to see everyone smile. Perry walked the last mile under her own power with a gate trainer, and we were all around her cheering her on. So to see her cross the finish line is just such an uplifting moment in my life, that it's something that I tell everyone, just to be there and be a fan of someone else's. Because I made it to the major leagues, and I'm doing television with the Mets for years, and I get looked at and like Curtis was saying, some of us are gods. It's very rare that I get to turn around and look at someone and I'm jealous of them, in a way of like that accomplishment, that moment of victory that they just had. I know what that feels like, and I want to do it again. And I don't think running is in my future for it to be oh, look, you won the marathon. So the idea that I was able to not only complete the task of raising money all year long, and then completing the marathon, and then celebrating afterwards with them, and continuing to think about, okay, as soon as the day is over, Lori Finkelstein, who's the mom, as soon as the race is over, we're sitting out by the pool in Miami, and she says, okay, we got to start talking about next year's fundraising. And I'm like, oh my God, we just got done. But the Finkelsteins are relentless. They're fantastic people. But that also started because when I went to give an autograph, I remember Lori was like, who are you? And they were like, we're trying to give this to David Wright. She had made a bracelet, like a lanyard type bracelet. Perry had made it herself. So she wanted David Wright to have one. And so they gave me one. I took it into David Wright, and I gave it to him. He put it up in his locker. And I said, I never really thought much would become of it. That was 2009. I'm doing SNY, and I get an inbox message in my Facebook from Joel Finkelstein, her brother. And he sends me a video of her on YouTube where she did 1,000 steps, where she just took 1,000 steps in the Miami Marathon. And it was, again, overwhelming. It was where it was, okay, how do I get involved, and what can I do? Because it's one thing to write a check. It's another thing to actually go through the experience and to help raise awareness, and to see the look on these kids' faces, and then to do things with them afterwards, do bowling events where I can, I bring all the kids out and try to do a bowling event where we also get a chance to raise money. We do raffles, we get a lot of things donated and then raffle them off. And these life experiences, those are the kinds of things that are on my, my bucket list is about life experiences, not necessarily about, the monetary things. Those are nice, don't get me wrong, but a car is a car, a house is a house. When it comes to life experiences and my journey of going all over the place, Curtis got a chance to go to Cuba to go play stickball with guys who are some of the best athletes in the world when it comes to baseball. And to be able to do that, I did that in Dominican Republic, where you're driving down in the mountains, and all of a sudden you see a group of kids playing with a mop handle and one blue ball, a racquetball, and they're out there playing 9-on-9 with no shoes on. You know, it's a rock quarry out there, and they're with no shoes on, some of them, but they're playing with this joy, this love of the game. And I see all these players come over, and I always tell them, remember that joy that you played with. Don't let the pressure of the money, don't let the pressure of the fans, don't let that interfere with the joy of the game. And I like the younger generation that's coming up, the Fernando Tatises of the world, where you can see that energy that they give off. That's why he's the poster boy for the MLB game, the video game this year, because that's what you're looking at. Is I played with his dad with the Mets, and now I get to see Junior, who was just a little kid who used to, we used to pitch him underhand just to see if he could hit the ball. And now this guy's crushing balls all over the place. So it's one of those things that being able to give back is always one of my biggest priorities.
Yeah, people don't realize people realistically don't realize as an athlete, we are human. We love to give back. The greatest thing that I did was in New York was putting on the Yankee uniform and standing out an old Yankee ballpark. And there used to be a lot of, it was Thurman and myself and Bobby Bonds and Jim Ray Hart and all those guys. We used to go to a lot of Shriners, a lot of telethons when we used to play during the off season, and to be able to give back to somebody. I think the greatest thing in the world is a lot of times I go down, do a lot of stuff at the stadium, and I'm watching batting practice, and I get baseballs, and I get the balls that they hit for home runs. I'm picking up. I'm the only one in left field or right field where I want to be. I'm picking them up. If you see a kid that has any type of Down syndrome in a wheelchair, they don't know who you are. I mean, hey, I give them a baseball, and I said, enjoy yourself. And then, and then the helper would say, "Who are you?" And you say, "Oh, I remember you," like that. And and you give a child a hug. The greatest thing in the whole world is to watch people smile. That's the greatest thing in the whole world. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, just to provide, like, just even for those seconds, just to see them smile and forget something for that second, just to see that and to provide these experiences. And speaking of which, I want to welcome Nelson Braff, who is one of the major benefactors of High Lifeline. Welcome, Nelson. How are you?
Hi, Natalie. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Nelson. How you doing, big guy?
Good. How are you? So, Nelson, I'm another Nelson from Coney Island, by the way.
Wow, look at that. Who'd have thunk it?
Right? Also Lincoln High School. And,
oh, my heavens.
So, first of all, on behalf of High Lifeline, thank you for everything. You're actually one of the people who come up in conversation every so often. Usually when they ask me who I know to bring around for the next summer. Last summer there was a bit of a challenge, actually. So one of the reasons I came on, he doesn't know it yet, but next summer we're going to be taking Ron to Camp Simcha.
I'm ready.
Nice.
He just didn't know about it until
No. I don't know about it, but I wanted to talk to Nelson and find out from the Finkelstein down in Miami, because my son is a physician down in Hollywood. So I want to get involved. Anything that's charity, I want to get involved, Nelson. Anything I can help you with. I know I'm going to get Curtis to help you too. Curtis, you coming with me, big guy? Hey, Nelson, have you met Curtis? Nelson,
we have not met face to face.
But I got one bone to pick with you, Ronnie Blomberg.
Yes.
Sitting out in the canyon beyond the monuments in the old Yankee Stadium where nobody was after '64 because we were down there with Basement Bertha. And the Jewish Hammer, first designated hitter, but who had a Knish named after him? Not Ronnie Blomberg, Roy White. I don't think you remember. The vendor would come around and he'd be selling Roy White Knishes.
How in the world? I'm going to talk to him tomorrow. I'll talk to Eva. I'll give him a call.
You should impale yourself with a menorah. That a guy from Los Angeles who was always reading books, not Jewish, had a Knish named after him, but you didn't.
And that's why he's lighting candles for bar mitzvahs up in New York, and I'm not? No, I'll talk to him about that. But this is wonderful. You know, see, this is wonderful to be able to talk because Curtis, you know, you and I basically almost the same age. Nelson, you know, he's a kid now. You know, I mean, I watched him when he was young, you know, to be successful. And, you know, Nelson, I met Nelson. I don't know if you've been to, Nelson and Curtis, have you been to his restaurant, the Hunt and Fish Club in New York?
Curtis was there.
Curtis.
It's the Bergen Hunt Fish and Shoot Human Beings Club.
That's slightly different.
Junior, John Gotti Jr. and Gambino.
You were there.
Hey, wait a second.
One time,
I'm
things
taking you
happen
to-
now.
Nelson could go to any games he wants to. I'm taking you to a Yankee game. And, you know, Nelson, I'm going to take you to a Yankee game. We're going to go up in
Please.
the press box and we're going to enjoy ourselves.
What
And
about me? Where am I going?
yeah, you got credentials. You could go up to the press box. You know, you could talk to Kay and Sterling and all those guys and, you know, and Coney and all those. You could talk to those guys.
No, I'm going to the
You're
Hunt and
going
Fish
in.
Club.
You can show your pass.
You were there, Natalie?
No, I've never been. I've never been.
Oh, we got to
You never
correct
been to
that.
Yankee Stadium?
No, I live at the I live at Yankee Stadium.
I know that. What did you say? You've never been up at
The
press
Hunt
box?
and Fish Club.
Hunt and Fish Club, yeah.
Oh, no. Because of this Zoom and we're doing a lot of stuff like a family together.
We
you're
are
part of what?
familia.
Okay, now, Curtis and Nelson. Okay, Figueroa, Mish Booker. You heard of Mish Booker? Nelson,
Mishpucha. Uh-huh.
have you met? You know what that is?
I
Is he
know, but
Jewish?
yes, I know most of it because I'm married to a Jewish woman, and I'm going to Brandeis. I've heard a lot of it.
Oh, you know,
I
Mish Booker.
actually have three yarmulkes. I have three yarmulkes that have Major League Baseball symbols.
Oh no, do you really?
And I swear it's got to be the same kid that makes it for me. But I had one he made with a Brandeis symbol, one he made with the Philadelphia Phillies symbol, and one with a Mets symbol.
He looks a little Jewish, right, Nelson? Does he look a little Jewish?
I could pull it off. I have the Israeli eyebrows. That's what I used to say at Brandeis.
We could get Curtis. Curtis could take us down to MacArthur's Arthur's Avenue. Is that still pretty good?
Arthur Avenue, absolutely.
They
Yeah,
still
but
have
it's all Albanians pretending to be Italians and Matt. But I will tell you this: I hated the Mets. I still hate the Mets. Respect Figueroa, but you guys,
None taken.
pictures, you were Schmendricks. I despise you. If you went to the old Shea Stadium and you looked at the parking lot, it looked like a demolition derby, right? Like I don't know what cars were in worse shape. Jamaica Salvage, which by the right field line, or Met fans, three-eyed cousin fornicators driving there with no teeth. I mean, let's be honest. That was your typical Met fan.
It sounds like people from South Carolina, no teeth, you know?
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
right. I mean, Met fans is like, oh man, so low budget. And then Rheingold, that would burn your insides out.
Remember when the Yankees, hey, Curtis, remember Nelson? Okay, this is
Yes, sir.
before the little Nelson, okay? Remember when when we changed from the old stadium to the new Yankee Stadium? Not
Mhm.
that we had to go to Shea Stadium for 2 years, 74 and 75. Remember that? And let me tell you, when it rained, it was like, I found out it was over a swamp. And every time we're trying to yell at Thurman or yell at Nettles, anybody, or Roy White or Elliot Maddox out in the outfield, you couldn't hear anything because you had those 747s going over that pole. And those lights are going bang, 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 bang like this.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, it was so, you know what?
As most Mets fans say,
Play at old Shea Stadium.
it was a
was
dump, but it was our
John
dump.
John Lindsay rehabbed the old house that Ruth built, exiled the Yankees to Shea Stadium. And Bobby Mercer, who was the star, you know, the mini Mickey Mantle from Oklahoma, never hit a home run.
At Shea Stadium, no, he couldn't hit
Shea
them.
Stadium in 2 years.
Yeah, it was in his mind. He couldn't hit home runs.
Right, but still, you couldn't hit home runs in Shea Stadium.
And he had the power to do it. He was just so totally psyched out because he saw right field in Yankee Stadium. And you know what? If you look at that, there's not too many left-hander hitters. Not a lot of them will hit the ball, will hit home runs to to right down the line in right field. You always hit it to right center. You always hit it right. Now, old Yankee Stadium, people don't realize center field was 461. And then when you went out to left center, it was like 430. And you go out there now, it feels like it's 200 feet. And if you hit the ball up in the air at any of these stadiums, Nelson, okay, now we're talking, okay, I told you we're going to talk about the DH now. Curtis,
Yes.
Nelson, we're going to all talk about the DH. I did a piece on my Facebook about 3 days ago about the DH. When I talked about the DH, half the people love it, half the people hate it. But it's been 48 years they have not made a decision to have it or not to have it. Why did it take 48 years? Now they talk about robotics as calling strikes, number one. Talking about putting somebody on second base in extra inning games.
Extra innings.
Yeah, and 7-inning games. They don't play double headers anyway, do they?
They will be. They will be.
They are they. You know, okay, they will be.
Yeah, that's the one thing they're bringing back, the 7-inning doubleheaders.
And you got the everybody's playing. They don't understand how the infield is. The infield is like playing on like AstroTurf. And Nelson, you're not going to have a bad bounce. I mean, you go out there. We used to play out there. We used to go to Shea or play Yankee Stadium. We're always like kicking rocks, and they drag it. Instead of pulling it with their carts, they used to drag the fields and stuff.
Yep. I remember.
Ask them in the minor leagues. I guarantee you. Did you start in Pulaski? Did you start in Pulaski when you're in minor leagues with the Mets?
No, I started in Kingsport, Tennessee. Was my first year. So I went from Kingsport. Pittsfield was the one up in Massachusetts. Was the neck level. So you went to
I was
Pittsfield.
in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Yep, I know Johnson City very well. Yep. Then we have through the Met system, it was Kingsport to Pittsfield. Then you got to play in St. Lucie, and from St. Lucie you went to Binghamton. Binghamton you went to Norfolk, and then Norfolk to the big league. So there's the 6 levels that you have to go through and have success at each level to make it to the big leagues. And some of those towns, again, the lower you're down, the lower down the I would say the town is, and it's an adjustment. It's always an adjustment. You were talking earlier about how, first round draft picks. Yeah, I played with a lot of guys who had more talent. I played with a lot of guys who, got more money to sign. But my first year, prime example, a high school shortstop, they signed him to $800,000 signing bonus. He quit after 1 year. He wasn't in love with baseball. And when he had to move outside of his small town where he was the big star, he did not feel it was enough to keep him away from being at home, closer to his mom, dad, and eventually his girlfriend who became his wife. So he gave up. I remember the second half of his signing bonus because he really didn't want to be a baseball player. It was a dream that his father had for him. He was able to accomplish it and be a first-round draft pick, and he was first-round draft pick for the Mets, so he went kind of early. And then he decided just wasn't into baseball that much. So there are guys like that as well that you will never hear of. There's tons of guys who can throw 100 miles an hour down the minor leagues. You will never see them in a major league uniform because there's other things that they can't do. And the mental side of it, mental toughness, is a huge part of it. And that's something that you can't gauge, like a spin rate or batting average or an ERA. That's something that old scout would be able to kind of hang out for a week, watch the team interact, be around the kid and listen to him talk to him a little bit. And you can get a gauge on what makes this kid tick. They don't really do that much anymore.
It's so analytical for myself. People always ask me, how did I hit the ball? I'm very simple. I see the ball, I swing, I hit it, just like you did in stickball. You're not going to computerize all this, and with the ratio, how high you hit the ball, how hard you hit the ball. You hit a home run, you hit a home run. That's how I look at it. But we're talking about minor leagues. People don't realize when you're in the lower minor leagues, you might be rooming with about 7, 8 guys. And then the next morning, you wake up with 4 because 3 of them got released.
Oh, and yeah.
Then you 3 more. You probably went through that too. And
oh, yeah. That's tough.
Got released. Oh, that guy was a good ball player. That guy could throw hard. People don't realize how, people think it's easy. It's not. The life in the big leagues are a lot easier because, you could get your Rolls Royces, You could, get your Gucci and Poochie stuff. You could buy your 4 houses in every city you go to. You could get the yachts. But in the minor leagues, believe me, you eat at White Castles. You eat at McDonald's. After a ball game at 11 o'clock at night in these small towns where it's 3,000 people in the whole town, what's open? You're barely running in there and getting French fries. Am I right?
Yeah, yard. We used to talk about Yardbird. We would have 3 or 4 guys go in on a bucket of chicken. So you'd split a bucket of chicken before the game to have something to get you through the game. That the spread. So being in AAA, which is one step below the limelight, you're sitting there and you're having your meal. Your meal is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, maybe some cold cuts if you're lucky. Maybe if they were really fancy, they had a Foreman grill and you were able to grill a little bit of a chicken breast. And then all of a sudden you turn on, you go to the big leagues the next day and you got a chef there at the stadium who's cooking up 7 different entrees. And so you really, I used to always say, you got to stay humble, because if you have to go back down and the last thing you said to that guy in AAA was, see you in your sorry sandwiches later. Then when you're back down, you're going to have to go get your own food because they're not going to take care of you anymore.
Yankee Stadium, you go to Legends, and I don't know if you've ever been to Legends.
Yes, I know. I've heard.
Go in there, you got the lobsters, you got the fillets, you got the, and then you go in a Yankee clubhouse. In the Yankee clubhouse, they got their own manufacturer of chefs and stuff. Their chefs are just like they're on TV. Those chefs on TV.
Yep. Iron Chef.
I'm getting in the afternoon. Well, what do you want for lunch? Well, I like to have spaghetti and meatballs. Well, back home we call it spaghetti and meatballs. Y'all call it with what kind of sauce and stuff. We get Monero.
Bolognese.
We put ragu. Yeah, we put ragu sauce on it, back down in Georgia. And that's where we used to go. And, and I used to send the clubhouse guys. And the clubhouse guys used to go to a deli called the Roxy in
Boston to
the Bronx. I used to let them go get me my pastrami and my corned beef and my half sour pickles, and they used to go out and Thurman and I.
Hank Aaron was beginning.
Yep. Well, speaking of your finale, Ron, I think we're going to start our own finale here. And I think we want to thank our guests, Curtis Sliwa, Nelson Figueroa, Nelson Braff. I hope you guys enjoy the show, but follow up on them. You can find the Guardian Angels at guardianangels.org. Nelson, Figueroa, Figgy, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but follow him. He has his own podcast, Amazing But True.
The New York
and
Post, yep.
Nelson Braff, check him out on High Lifeline. So thank you so much for joining us.
Nelson, thank you for everything you do for us.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
Ellie, thank you, big guy. I love you. Anything you need from us, you let us know, big guy.
We'll be in contact. I'm going to a Yankee game with you. I want to go with you because then I'll get treated.
You got me. We're going to. Hey, don't worry. We won't have to pay for anything. We'll use Natalie. We'll use Natalie.
We're going to take Ron to the camp.
Yes.
Hey, Curtis, wait a second. And Curtis, you and your family are my guests to go to Yankee Stadium. I just want to let you know that. And let's keep it.
I'll tell you what, Blomberg, I'll tell you what, since you got the juice, right? Since you might as well be related to the Steinbrenners.
No, the Steinbrenners are not Jewish. Randy Levine and Lon Trump are Jewish.
I know that. And Randy Levine's from Brooklyn. But you tell that Shonda that he better have the rendition of Kate Smith's God Bless America play during the 7th inning stretch. Will never be in the new mall known as the new Yankee Stadium, built by A-Royd and Derek Jeter.
I love that.
I gotta tap out after that one.
I love it.
Hi, guys.
I love it.
Love you. Thank you, Ron.
All right, everybody, be well.
Be well too. Love y'all. Curtis, love you, big guy. Nelson.
You got it, boys.
Thank you.
Love y'all, big guy.
Thank you.
Jordan,
Take
it was
care, guys.
great tonight. It was great. Natalie, it was wonderful like everything. Hey,
thank you.
Curtis, can you hear me?
Uh-oh, we lost Curtis.
Oh, no, there he is. Oh, we lost him. We lost Ron. So thank you so much again, Curtis.
Curtis, thank you so much, Curtis.
Yeah, anytime. It flows through my veins and arteries, especially you get back to